then set up some ground rules.
Oh, that's really
You know,
good.
I'll make a
Boundaries,
covenant together.
That's good.
And just make it explicit instead of having to feel weird about it. Because a lot of times we do have to go somewhere where we're legally, protected from that.
Right.
Well, shouldn't a covenant be better than the law?
Right.
Right? That's the way it's supposed to be. But the Bible also says this, that even in the church, there's bad actors.
Yeah.
There are gossips, and there are people that use you. And, David said in Psalm 101, it was so powerful. He says, there are certain kinds of people I will not tolerate.
Right.
The narcissistic, judgmental, gaslighting, holier than thou. He just lists them all. And then he says, but those who are blameless, who walk in a blameless way, they will be the ones that minister to me. He actually said he's going to choose good, safe people.
That's good.
To minister to his heart. And that's what we need to be diligent about
That's
doing.
good.
What suggestions would you give people? Our friends who are watching right now who think, I want this. I want to be able to let that facade down. I want to be myself, but I'm just scared, and they've probably been hurt before.
Yeah.
What are some steps to start moving toward that?
Well, it's a really important question. One of the things to remember is that sometimes when you've been hurt and, used and gaslighted and all of that there's so much noise that it's really hard to see who's safe and who isn't. And a lot of times people will not see it coming, and they get seduced into feeling like they're safe, and then they get used or hurt. So if you're not sure, and your people picker is kind of broken.
People picker.
I literally was just
that.
going to say, how do you fix your people picker? Literally, right before you said that.
I'm going to preach that. Is your people picker broken?
That's right. Well, what did Jesus say? We have to get the log out of our own eye first so we can see clearly.
That's good, yeah.
Because a lot of times if we've been hurt and all that, we just can't even see who's around us.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure, then you said it exactly right. Go somewhere where somebody hangs out a shingle that says, this is a confidential space. I am trained to help you with what you're struggling with. It's not going to go anywhere. And if it does, you can have me put in jail.
Yeah.
So start somewhere safe. And then from there, I would kind of move up the food chain a little bit to where, from a counseling or a counseling group, then you could go to like a ministry like Celebrate Recovery, for example, where they have ground rules. And people, the only reason you show up there is because you're being authentic. Nobody comes to Celebrate Recovery and says, I'm here to show y'all how holy I am.
I'm here because I don't have a problem.
And you get thrown right out, right?
I'm fine.
So go somewhere that's structured. Go to your pastor. Go somewhere where they're actually hanging out a sign that says it's safe here. Now from there, you start to smell out who's safe and who isn't and who's bad. And then you can kind of move up to where you gain the skills of, I think it's Hebrews 5:14, amazing verse that says solid food, which is relationship and a bunch of other real life. Solid food is for the mature,
Right.
who through practice have had their senses trained to discern good from evil. Now that's a people picker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You, through practice and learning who's safe and who's narcissistic and who's vulnerable, you get your senses, because a lot of times when people grow up in dysfunctional churches or backgrounds, they get trained out of their senses.
Yeah.
Like you'll feel something, well, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
Or, no, the Lord is going to turn, I think it hurts. Shut up or I'll give you something to cry about.
Right.
All of that invalidation, and they get talked right out of their senses. And so then their senses, their gut feelings, they're not trusting them, and they get hurt again.
Right.
And the Bible addresses this.
Yeah.
And so we have to be on that path of finding safety and finding people that exhibit God's grace and his truth. Somebody that can be honest with us. And it's so covered in grace that you thank them for it.
Yeah.
It's safe.
I think we have to get to the point, too, where we're not so caught up in caring about what other people think of us. I don't think you can really open up and be honest with anybody if you're so afraid that they're going to think that you're not this or you are that or you're not something else. And so
That's right.
there's always two sides to it. You know, there's the side of me being willing to be authentic, but then there's the other side of, will you keep my secrets? And then there's the side of, am I willing to be honest with you, even if you do judge me? Am I okay
Right.
with
That's good.
whatever you want to think about me? Because
Yeah.
the only thing I really care about is what God thinks of me.
Yeah.
That's right. And, Jesus said, woe to you, woe to you when all men speak well of you. If you're trying to people please and make everybody like you and care too much about what everybody says, then we become multiple personalities because we got to please this person and that person.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
And it's
And like
horrible.
that
But
definition of that word, authentic, it's,
Right.
Instead of being who you think everybody wants you to be,
That's right.
which really everybody they want something different.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you get so confused. I mean, there were times in my life when I was so confused and I was trying to be my neighbor and my husband and my pastor's wife. And, none of those were uniquely me. And so thank God that I've worked through a lot of that, but it was really challenging at the time. I've actually come to the point where I believe, and I was thinking about this the other day, if I am sitting around wanting to be you, I wish I had hair like you, and I wish my body was your shape, and I wish that, I could this and that, something else. I think it's actually an insult to God. Because he created us uniquely with his own hand in our mother's womb, carefully, the Bible says. And so not one of us is a mistake. And I really think it's wrong to want to be somebody else. I think you really need to embrace who you are. Even if you think you're the most unique person on the planet, I think you need to embrace who you are and, take a chance on being real. And if people can accept that, fine. And if they can't, then you'll live without it.
And it's good to live without them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you realize that for a relationship to go away because somebody disapproves of you, and you're truly pleasing God, if I always say, don't count your critics, weigh them.
Right.
And if you're upsetting the control freaks and the narcissists and the gaslighters and the toxic people, it's usually because you won't do what they want.
Right.
You say
Yeah.
no to them and they have a temper tantrum or they judge you. If you're upsetting the right people, you're probably really doing well.
Yeah.
Because the people we want that are pleased with us and think we're doing well are people that we're in spiritual community with,
Right.
and we're being confessional and we're trying and all that, and they're not going to judge us. So all these other people, let them go have a judgment party.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I literally
And don't invite me.
I literally
Don't.
to this morning because someone had seen something I'd shared on the Talk It Out podcast, and they saw something else, and they sent me a message. It was a family member. Well, I guess you call it an ex-family member, but they were just like, you need to just let it go and don't do this and don't say this and you shouldn't share. And I said, you know what? I believe that I'm hearing from the Lord on how to share. I have great people around me that are giving me wise counsel. And I was like, and honestly, if you don't like what you're saying, feel free to unfollow. That's what I mean. I was like, I love you, but feel free. I literally did that this morning, and it was like, it was hard for me to send that, but it was just kind of like,
Did you feel free though?
I did.
Yeah,
it felt
I'll
so
bet.
good to just say like, hey, if you don't like what I'm sharing, it might not be for you, but I
Right.
do have great people in my life, and I'm listening to the Lord, and I'm making mistakes along the way. But if
Yeah.
you don't like my journey, feel free to unfollow me.
That's
and I
such
felt
a
like,
key.
woo.
It's admitting that you're not perfect, that I'm never doing all of it right. So help me, support me. But if it's not right for you, then I get it.
Yeah, but
Step back. That's
her,
okay.
Her
I
opinion
gotta
of me
do
was
what I gotta do.
unsolicited. It was just
Yeah.
like I didn't ask you for your opinion of
Right,
me, and I didn't
yeah.
ask you for your wisdom. I really have clearly great people around me, And I was just like, I love you and I appreciate you giving me your
Yeah.
opinion, but if you don't like it, feel free to unfollow.
And it's so impossible to please a critical person. I mean, what does a dog do? They bark. What does a critical person do? They criticize. Doesn't matter who they're with. I love that passage where where he says, John the Baptist came neither eating or drinking, and you called him all these sorts of things. The Son of Man came eating and drinking. You said he's a glutton and a drunkard. Who can make you happy?
How do you win?
Yeah, right.
Nobody can make these people happy.
That's right. That's
So
exactly
let them go.
right.
Just.
I think this is really freeing for a lot of people. I really do. Thank you.
One piece of advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lady said, it was in a seminar one day. She said, "How do you deal with controlling and critical people?" I said, "Why would you want to do that? Why do you want to deal with these people?"
That's good.
And she goes, "Because they're everywhere." And it's like, and she started talking about it, like at her church and her work, and she was kind of like somehow they almost became people that she would gravitate towards to try to gain their approval. And I said, "Here's what you do. You just convert them." And she says, "Well, they're not interested in God." And I said, "I didn't say anything about God." I said, "You convert them from being a controlling person to being a frustrated person." Because if you just say no, they're no longer controlling because they don't have control of you. They're just really frustrated. So you just say no, they'll get frustrated and they'll figure it out. And
Take that power away
maybe
from them,
they'll come
essentially.
You got some good stuff, you know that?
He's a smart guy.
Actually, it's just been extremely dysfunctional for a lot of years and kind of, doing what we're talking about. It's I think of 2 Corinthians 1 a lot. It says, "We comfort others with the comfort by which we've been comforted by God." And when I was right, in college and right after, I really got depressed, really, really depressed, and hit the pavement hard. And God reached in. I went in an empty church one day and